But good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sunday night edition of Saturday Night Live and Rambling. I'm Clay,
Did you say
and
the
along
Saturday
with me
edition or
is
the?
yeah,
Okay,
and along with me is the lead rambler, E Train.
pretty
So
much.
glad to see you, Melissa. Good to see you. Still sick? That is not acceptable. We need you well. We need you well yesterday.
Yeah, I forgot she's done different times, and I was like, "Good afternoon." Like, it's almost bedtime. What are you talking about?
Yeah, she is 3 hours behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So
That is correct.
yeah, top of the afternoon to you, Melissa. Glad you're with us. Do appreciate it, even though you don't feel too sporty.
Snuggle in, get some soup, snuggle with green bean, and get better very soon.
And Chunk's crying for you.
Don't- It's
It's
almost
almost
bedtime.
bedtime. You sound
Well,
as
I mean,
bad as E Train.
it's 7. It's close, 2 hours away, and I can slumber.
It's 9 o'clock somewhere.
Of course.
Well, how's the weather out in California? Y'all getting? I guess y'all stay warm. You're kind of more southern, so I guess y'all always stay warm. We hit another cold spell here, and so I was getting close to cheering on 70 degrees, and then all of a sudden it drops back down into the 40s, whatever, high of 50.
Mm.
So that's a little nippy, particularly at night when it's in the 30s. So I'm about ready for spring. We got spring break coming up in a week, so
Do you really?
it's yeah, it's come not this week, but next week. So it's coming up at
Okay.
an opportune time. Yeah, damn it, California always has nice days. That's the good and the bad. I like the change of seasons. I like the fall, for example, but it is kind of nice always, having good, even, beautiful weather. Hey,
Uh,
Brentwood, how you doing?
Hey, Brentwood. Hey, Moffat. I'm going to distract you for a second.
Shocked?
If if you if you don't mind, turn. I know, Wrench, turning around and putting your lights on. They need to be plugged in. I apologize. I did unplug them.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's. I can come down and do it. It's like on the floor.
Yeah, I had knee surgery past year or two, couple of knees, and I don't
I'll be there in
hadn't
a
quite
sec.
got them to where I bend down as well as I used to. So we're gonna let Ellen come down and handle the plugging in. She's a little bit more bendable than I am right now. They're getting better.
Right now, I'm always more bendable than you are.
Yeah,
Yes,
flick
and Brentwood, you do have a wrench.
a wrench.
Yes, she is a mod now.
Oh, yes, we would like to welcome our newest mod, Brentwood Sheep.
Yo, okay, go. Thank you. Dogs are not being helpful.
Ellen's finding out she's not as bendy as she thought she was.
Well, I can't with two hands down there.
Two things down there, two Morky like things down there that will get in your face and just lick. So, yeah, we heard Brentwood was modding for another channel and not using StreamYard. So we thought, while she's at it, let her go ahead and learn StreamYard, and if she wants to, and it's just a night fit, and it's great to have her as our mod. Now tonight, we're going to take a look at education. Most of you know I'm an educator, so I can fuss about it. I love education. I value education greatly. And there just, continues to be a stream of issues in the educational system in this country. It's not recent. It's been accumulating down through the years. And just some things have happened to kind of stir up interest in this. So in response to that, we thought, tonight we'll just take a look at another government system, because we oftentimes in economics and finance, you're oftentimes talking about government involvement, intervention. So I thought tonight we'd take a look at another government system that deserves an F, the American educational system. This is a topic that's obviously near and dear to me, but it's also a topic that hits pretty hard because I'm part of the system. I'm part of the system that's failing our kids and our country. So we're going to examine that failure. Now, first thing I want to do is I want to have y'all take an exam.
Oh, no.
Oh, yes.
All right.
This is a 1912 exam from an 8th grade school in
Kentucky.
What was it? Yeah, Bullitt County, Kentucky.
You got to blow it up. I cannot read that.
There it is right there. Bullitt County Schools, November 1912. Spelling. So here are the words that the teacher would call out that they had to spell. How good are you at spelling chandelier? Exaggerate. Conceive,
Pretty good.
architect, enivor, synopsis, eccentric in the 8th grade. That's not bad, but it gets better. Write in words. How would you write 0.000003? Fair question. Could you solve?
Did you write it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you solve?
0.0003.
No, in words.
That was the words.
No. You've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, 100,000.
Oh, you mean
millionths.
the actual places?
Yes.
It just
3
says write in
millionths
words.
of
The
a
following.
point.
That's,
You fail.
No.
Then you find the cost at 12.5 cents per square yard. A man bought a farm for $2,400, sold it for $2,700. What percent did he gain? You just go through these.
Hang
and
on.
Some of
ask one of your college students to take that.
I think I may actually give it to them as a pop quiz for the fun of it, or pick out a few questions. How many 2-foot, 4-inch steps will a man take in walking 2.25 miles? This is 8th graders. Grammar. How many parts of speech are there? Define each. What properties have verbs? William struck James. Change the voice of the verb.
Verb is action, an action word.
All right, change the voice of it.
The voice of a verb.
Yeah. This is 8th grade, 120 years ago.
Okay.
Parse all the words in the following sentences. John ran over the bridge. Helen's parents love her. Define longitude.
What do you mean
latitude.
by parse? What does that even mean?
Tell me what you know of the Gulf Stream.
It runs from the North Atlantic down through the south to Australia, does it not? No?
No.
Am I wrong?
No. Find the country of Montenegro.
Yep. No. Oh, crap. Nope.
Locate these cities: Mobile, Quebec, Buenos Aires, Liverpool, Honolulu.
I could do that. I'll like the history part. Name.
How does the liver compare in size with other glands in the body? What does it secrete?
Wait, go up a sec.
8th graders.
Go up a minute. Name an order of their size, 3 largest states in the United States. Cool. Capitals of states touching the Ohio River. Impressive.
Yeah, for the 8th grade, I got to admit, define cerebrum cerebellum. What are the
Okay, go up a
functions or
second.
uses of the spinal column?
Okay, go up for a sec.
Ellen?
Okay. Name the organs of circulation? So I would say the heart, arteries, veins. I'll also the lungs. Is that technically incorrect?
Yeah, I don't think the lungs would be included as an organ of circulation. There's a lot of organs in the circulatory system, but
Yeah, oh, whatever.
to what 4 governments are students in school subjected? Name 5 country officers and the principal duties of
County.
each.
County.
County officers, yeah, and the principal duties of each. Give 3 duties of the president. What 3 rights given Congress by the Constitution and 2 rights denied Congress? 8th grade. Who first discovered Florida, Pacific Ocean, Mississippi River, St. Lawrence River? Here's one I
Sir
love.
Walter Raleigh. Wait, Raleigh?
Sketch briefly Sir Walter Raleigh, Peter Stuyvesant.
That is not even spelled right.
Well, it's the Old English spelling.
Okay. Okay, Brentwood says
I would be drawing a stick man.
I would too. Brentwood says I would miss all of those without study first. Then she said number 8 is a trick question depending on the year. And has Alaska become a state yet? I don't think so. In this test, no. Right?
Now this one I love. During what wars were the following battles fought? Brandywine, Great Meadows, Lundy's Lane, Antietam, Buena Vista.
With Antietam, I would say the Civil War.
Right.
But that's not the one.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
How about Buena Vista?
Oh, there's a different war for each one. No freaking
Yes.
clue. Civil. Melissa. That's what I thought too, but
yeah, the Great Meadows was a colonial battle against Indians. Buena Vista.
Native Americans or India?
Indians, American Indians.
Okay. I was going to say dots or feathers, but that's probably not politically correct.
Brandywine was a battle in the Revolutionary War to defend Philadelphia. Yeah, Philadelphia. So, describe the Battle of Quebec.
No idea.
That would be tough. Give the cause of the War of 1812 and name an important battle fought during the war.
That was after, it was a civil war, right?
Nope, that was the second war with the Brits.
Oh, didn't know there was a second.
Yeah,
1776, baby.
The important battle fought during the war was when the British captured Washington, D.C.
Yes, correct. We're trying to show what us Gen Xers learned. And then the peanut guy was, don't tell me.
What peanut guy?
The guy that did experience the peanuts. And the, y'all help. With the peanuts and the genetics and the Melissa Brentwood, I know you know this. Carver, yes.
George Washington Carver.
George Washington Carver, yep.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I'll oftentimes use him as an example in some of my classes. He was a brilliant scientist, brilliant man.
Mhm.
Obviously, there were very few black PhDs during the time, and something happened. I'm not sure once, but he had a very humbling experience. You might call it a come to Jesus moment, and where he figuratively, if not literally, fell on his knees and just prayed, Lord, the world is too complex for me to understand. Just help me understand the simplest thing on the earth. And back then, the peanut was thought to be the simplest biological plant on the earth in existence. It was just a weed. Everybody hated it. So
I love peanuts.
he gave his life to studying peanuts and developing products from them. And he ended up with something like, I don't know, 800 or 1,000 patents on peanut products. He revolutionized
Mhm.
agriculture in the South, which was being ravaged by the boll weevil, and basically gave birth to agricultural corporations like Archer Daniels Midland. So he literally, by trying to master the simplest thing he could, revolutionized the world that, Southerners and even Americans live in. So a fascinating guy. Absolutely fascinating guy.
Oh,
Well,
oh, I know
anyway.
number 7. Two presidents who died, Lincoln and Kennedy. I know this was before Kennedy, but
No, well, that was also, there have been 3 that were assassinated, but 2 died of natural causes.
well, I named 2 who have died in office. I win. I win this one.
Ellen wins. So
I this I am interested. Go back to that for a sec, if you don't mind. Yeah, the Bullitt County Board of Education. Okay,
shall
they
they
are very important people.
they came up with a hell of a
Apparently.
test for an 8th grader.
Mm-hmm.
8th grader. And we're going to talk about education and historical education, and particularly current education. Now,
Lord have mercy.
understand,
Yes.
these kids were from Bullitt County. This was in, 1900, 1912. It was a backwards county, backwoods Kentucky. The kids were not from privileged families. Their families were miners or farmers or lumberjacks in the early 1900s. Now, Bullitt is best known as the trailhead of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. They're the home of Jim Beam, Preservation,
Bullet. That would be
Bullitt
one.
Bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
You ever tried Bullitt Bourbon?
And their rye. Yes.
Yeah, kind of a modestly well-known company, along with
Mm-hmm.
Jim Beam. Preservation, a little bit so. Barton's is also there in the county,
Okay.
and
Never heard of that.
they're bordered by Fort Knox, home to the Fifth Corps, and home of one of the U.S.'s largest gold repositories, Fort Knox. So we've
Yep.
talked about Fort Knox a little bit before.
Do we even have gold in there still? Like, why do
Yeah.
we keep it? Why?
It's part of the nation's reserves. I think we have somewhere around $10 billion in gold. Some of it's held at the Fed in New York, some of it at Fort Knox, and there's a third location out west
Probably
that,
in Colorado.
yeah, I'm not sure of. But Fort Knox, I think, has the largest chunk. New York Fed has some international stores of gold as well.
I thought we just gave all of our money to all the countries that we abandoned. I'm sorry.
Usually. So, today, I brought this test up, one, because I think it's kind of fun. Two, when I just kind of laugh. And I think of this exam when I see other people's excuses for poor public education performance of today. They'll give excuses like low teacher salaries, poverty, lack of computers or technology, lack of assistance. Never enough money. Anytime there's educational failure, the first problem is always money. There's just not much really one can say excusing the job that schools do today that wasn't worse in 1912 backwoods Kentucky.
Say hello, and I gotta go away because I'm whining too much.
Say bye, Chunt. Bye, Chunt. Chunt always wants attention. This dog.
He's a mess. Now he'll go and sit on the couch next to Clay, and he won't whine at all.
Because I've got him fairly well conditioned not to come in here too often. They'll come in here every once in a while and give it a shot. So schools, education. How bad are schools today?
Terrible. Awful.
Well, schools,
hideous.
Scores in every subject and every grade level have been declining for years. Now, the unscientific COVID policies, the lockdown certainly worsened, the crisis in terms of health consequences as well as educational consequences, health-wise. Students have more mental issues, suicide rate has jumped, those kind of things. Educational, they were set even further behind the rest of the world. Especially concerning are the scores in reading and math, two of the most important subjects students can take. And, we've asked that question before and y'all have answered it.
Oh, can we do a poll?
Okay.
Okay.
Put it up.
I can't.
Yeah,
but I
you
can. No, but I can send you the information.
Okay.
On private chat.
Send me the information. Ellen always comes up for more for me to do during the show. I'm like, Ellen, but sometimes they're not too bad. She'll probably send me like 1,000-word poll.
Pretty much.
Now, while she's doing up the poll for me to do,
that's just part of it.
1/3. Can y'all see that? Here's an article from the New York Times. Talks about children being severely behind in reading. And they talk about it being due to the pandemic, which is a common excuse. But if you actually look at the numbers, they didn't fall that much from 2019. We were already bad in 2019. The same thing with math. Math scores fell in nearly every state. Reading dipped on a national exam. Again, they talk about the pandemic's devastating impacts on students. Again, but look at the scores. They didn't drop that much during the pandemic. They did drop, but they were already pretty damn bad. And this is with dumbing down the standards over the past 70 years. Now, the effects of poor education, the worst educational systems are generally in lower income and inner city schools. Early this year, the nation was kind of shocked to hear that 55 Chicago schools reported zero proficiency in math or reading. Zero proficiency. 55 schools, 1 through 8th grade. I'm sorry, 1 through high school. Zero schools, no schools had a student, even a single student, that was proficient in math or reading, despite billions of dollars in funding for these schools. Now, many will try to blame the COVID lockdowns, the pandemic. People will try to blame remote ed. Simple truth is that hurt, but things were already bad. And it's not just Chicago, it's all over. If you look at Baltimore, some reports just came out a few months ago about their absolutely horrible results. Horrible if you value education. And I say that not kidding. In 2022, just 7% of Baltimore students third through eighth grade, tested proficient in math, meaning 93% could not do math at grade level.
That's so
A
sad.
a report by a local journalist who looked at all the schools found 23 had zero students testing proficient, zero students in any class in the whole school. And this is in the state that is ranked, quote unquote, second in the country for education. Now, three of the city schools were not included due to being for incarcerated youth or special ed students with disabilities. And but that's not all. We're talking about schools with zero students. How about those schools with just one or two students? How about those schools with just five? They didn't raise the number that high, but they did take a look at one or two schools with just one or two students that were tested proficient out of the whole school. Well, that captured another 20 schools. And several of these schools, I saw the list, were STEM schools or tech schools, supposedly the best of the best. So literally 43 out of 150 schools, nearly 30% of all the schools in the city had zero students testing proficient. A lot of these schools have zero students who can't pass state proficiency exams. And this is in a city with one of the highest spending levels in the whole country, about $17,400 a year per student.
How sad is that? No,
Forbes,
New York is 40,000 per student.
yeah, and still horrible results.
Oh, they
Forbes
kicked him
recounted
out.
one mom who learned her student was a senior about to graduate. He had a 0.13 GPA and ranked 62 out of 120 in his class. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the GPA scoring system, if you get an A in a class, that's 4 points. A B is 3, a C is 2, a D is 1, and F is 0. So you take those and weigh them by the class hours. Most classes will be, say, 3 hours. Averaged 0.13. That's just barely above a D, almost failing. He actually had flunked all of his classes except for 3 in his first 3 years. This kid was a senior and about to graduate. How does that happen? Just how does that happen? Now, this reporter, local news reporter, showed that out of 200 Maryland public schools, that 200 Maryland schools had less than 5% showing proficient. This is not one or two schools. This is systemic, and it's focused and concentrated largely in the poor and low income areas.
And it's 7% in Rhode Island for the whole state.
Bingo. Is it a bug or is it a feature? Well, you know what we find in students with, very low educational backgrounds who, come from poverty. I'm looking for the study.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'm sorry if I seem distracted. I'm handling Rumble as well as other things, so I do apologize if I'm looking away and not paying attention. It's not because I'm not interested. I feel deeply about this, and Clay knows it because I shoved it down his throat this week. I was like, this has got to happen.
Well, I thought I'd downloaded a copy of the study. Apparently it got downloaded to the wrong file. Let me check one thing and see if it's there. Nope. If you want to see it, I'll find it and send it to you. But there's a study out of Harvard. If you still trust anything that they publish, But it shows that the students in poor school districts have little or no upward mobility in their future. It also shows their chances for upward mobility and a better life greatly improve if they move to neighborhoods with better schools, even if it's still a poor neighborhood. I know that's a shocker, but the point is, you see all of these inner city schools that have zero kids proficient, and they continue to pass them. They continue to graduate them. Why? Why? I already
Right.
mentioned that Baltimore was paying about 17.5 per student. Well, if you take a look at, spending, where that money's going, their educational CEO makes 33 nearly $340,000 a year. Now, putting that in context, that's more than $126,000 a year higher than the US Secretary of Education, which is a cabinet level position. The chief communications officer for the Board of Education earned 194,000. Tina Hubbard. Other highly compensated employees included Jeremy Skinner, the chief human capital officer. Not sure what the hell that is. 194,000. Lynette Washington, the chief operating officer. 194,000. Teresa Jones, the chief achievement and accountability officer. Boy, if that isn't a misnomer. 193,000. Achievement and accountability.
Sorry.
It's okay. Marianne Cox, chief financial officer, 192,000. So you've got all the brass running a crappy school system, making more than the U.S. Secretary of Education. We also found out the district that the city school district employed more non-teachers than teachers. Keep that in mind. They employ more non-teachers than teachers. Nearly 10,000 employees worked all 12 months last year. This would be in 2022. However, only 4,500 were teachers. So there were 1.1 support, clerical, administrative, whatever you want to call it, employees for every teacher. When you have more administrators than you do teachers,
You're administering
not
education.
you're not in the business of educating kids. You're in the business of administering education. Now, those 4,500 teachers were paid about $335 million, 74,000 and change on average. They cost taxpayers more than $100,000 each if you include employee benefits, perks, pension benefits, health benefits, those kind of things. In contrast, the Baltimore Catholic schools pay their teachers an average of $40,000 a year. The Catholic schools never shut down. They went back to school last September they shut down briefly, but they went back to school in September for in-person instruction, and their students consistently outperform the public schools. So they're getting paid less than half as much and doing far better job. Baltimore paid $700,000 to hall monitors with no kids in the halls, with no kids in the schools.
During COVID. That is
During COVID, yeah. What's a hall monitor do anyway? I don't know. But it gets better.
if kids are in the hall when they shouldn't be, when class is there, they just want to,
So it's a
make sure they go where they're supposed to go.
It's a paid rat. I don't know.
Pretty much.
Informant. I'm sure that'll go over well.
That's what I would have thought when I was in high school. I'd have been like, come on now.
Yeah.
I got in enough trouble.
Well, it gets even better. The Baltimore school system also has an Office of Equity. Whatever the hell that is. A 3-person, $300,000 office. Its director makes $144,000. This was in 2020. It offers a 2-day introduction to racial equity seminar for staff and has available resources for them, some of which discuss fighting things like white silence.
Excuse
Not
me?
sure white silence when whites aren't extensively protesting against systemic racism, I guess.
Do you mean like,
No, if it's just if you're not out protesting, you're being silent. We're being silent here tonight because we're not out protesting systemic racism. The
there is
website
no
notes
systemic racism that does not exist?
the website notes white people have a role in undoing racism because white people created and for the most part currently maintain, whether they
Wait,
want to or not,
bullshit.
the racist system that benefits white people to the detriment of people of color.
Bullshit.
The source
I'm
is
sorry.
the
Go
source
ahead.
is the third item on page 4 of the Equity Office resources. You can look for yourself, educating yourself.
Okay, wait though. The Africans sold their own people into slavery for things like a piece of bread.
Yeah, I mean that story just goes on and on. One of the largest slaveholders in the South was a black. Um,
Woman.
there were more white slaves in Africa than were
Hmm.
ever owned in the colonies. Slavery still continues in the Middle East and Asia, all around the world. Nobody
And
protests it. And Africa.
Africa is the biggest slave trade of its own people still. And I'm so I'm sorry, I'm so sick of the narrative that whites should pay for all this and people should just it's bullshit. It's total and complete bullshit.
Italians came over and oftentimes were given a worse treatment than slaves. The treatment of the Chinese when they came over, even, building the railroad was subhuman. Absolutely. It's just, it just goes on and on. To be clear, slavery is wrong, hugely a moral evil.
Of course.
But most of us have had family members that were beaten, tortured, enslaved, whatever. My family came over to the US because they were enslaved by the British Navy. They were impressed into the British Navy as a 10-year-old boy. Served on a British ship for 2 or 3 years. He apparently jumped a ship in Boston Harbor, swam ashore in the 1700s.
Hmm.
Everybody's got a sad story. My father grew up as a tenant farmer. Never owned a house. As a boy, they never owned a house. They lived in people's barns in North Dakota and Iowa during the winter. His main job was to pick up scraps of cloth and wood to stick in the holes in the side of the barn to try to block some of the wind as a young boy. So I'm not minimizing, anybody's past or slavery as a whole, but there's a whole broader story to tell if you want to be open and honest about it.
Well, now I feel bad because my family were priests.
That's all right.
And the other side of my family is on the Texas Declaration of Independence. So yeah, I don't have that
Yeah.
sad story.
There's not a race that hasn't owned slaves or been a slave
Hmm.
that I know of. Now, if we continue to look at, the administration, but take it more on a national scale.
Oh, wait. One quick thing, and I hate even giving attention to this. Joy Reid of The View had her genealogy DNA done, and
Right.
her family were Spaniards who owned slaves. And it just about broke her. Like should she pay reparations now because she wants them?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
we all have black sheep in our family,
mhm.
whether they're rich or poor whatever race, whatever color. We all have black sheep in the family, but that doesn't make us evil,
No,
immoral, lesser than anybody else. We
nope.
have the same opportunity as most anybody else. Now, you can say if you come from wealth or more money, you have better opportunity. My father, like I say, grew up poorest of the poor, tenant farmer, and he ended up being in the upper middle class. He did
Hmm.
he did well for himself.
He did well for you and your sister as well, just as far as teaching you morals and ethics and how to be a good person.
Yeah. I love my dad. Very, I miss him greatly. Um, but there is still opportunity in this country to be upwardly mobile and advance yourself, improve your life for your family. But we are not seeing that anymore in the poor and inner city. The
Mm.
Increasingly since the 70s and 80s, we've seen upward mobility come to a halt, particularly for the poor. Now, the middle class continues to migrate into the upper class into the rich. The problem is the poor is not migrating into the middle anymore. They are staying locked in the poor for 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. We've never had that before.
And the middle's going down quickly.
And the middle is shrinking because there's no growth to it. Nobody's feeding it. So the poor is growing, the middle class is shrinking, the rich is growing a little bit. It's just and you go, is that by design?
You think?
What's actually going on in schools? Well, how about schools adopting a no zero homework policy? Sets the lowest grade at 50%, even if they do no work. Think about that. Students can still pass the class by doing absolutely minimal work.
Wait, 50% still passes?
No, but if they do just a little bit of something, they'll
Okay.
get a 60, 65, whatever,
Okay.
and high enough to pass. Teachers are encouraged to offer multiple redos, anything to get the grade inflated. So, what are we teaching the students? Students realize that they don't have to work, they'll pass. Do you think that improves their work ethic? Do you think it makes them value their education? Do they see their education as an achievement, as something that, separates them and better prepares them for their future? Is it
I have a counter to that a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, when I was 16, my mother had a child, a baby, and I was more his mother than my mother actually was. I took care of him all the time. He slept with me. I fed him. I did all the babysat. I mean, I was just like a built-in nanny. And so in high school, I was struggling because I didn't sleep, right? And I had all this schoolwork to do, but I also had to take care of my little brother. So the teachers at that time gave me a second and third chance, mostly second. And the second time I would just ace whatever the heck it was going on. But I needed that opportunity because I was getting like no sleep, so much responsibility, and yelled at all the time. So I can't say it's awful for everyone. Some people, I think, deserve that extra shot, but the ones who just do nothing and don't care probably don't. But I would go to my teachers and ask them, can I just do this again? And here's my situation. How do you feel about that?
It happens. We all do the best that we can given the circumstances.
Mhm.
You know, some people's circumstances are better than others. I can't deny that. Some of it due to our own choices, some of it due to circumstances beyond our control. And the world is not perfect. Excuse me. The world is not perfect. But I believe in my heart of hearts in this country that if you do the right things consistently enough, you apply yourself, you exercise common sense, good discipline, good work ethic, that consistently over time, you will succeed and improve your life, improve your standard of living, improve your income. You'll provide a better life for your family, for your children. Sometimes there are severe problems that crop up for some people. I admit that happens. That is where I think, those who have, established ourselves maybe have some responsibility to lend a helping hand. And I'm not saying through the government,
Mhm.
I'm saying
No.
we directly. And, everybody looks to the government to solve the problems or help people in a difficult situation or having a difficult life. It's not the
And I'm
government
not saying,
job.
no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, when I had a bad result on a test, I would go to my teacher and say, look, I slept 3 hours last night. I was up with my little brother all night. I didn't get a chance to study because I was also working at the time. And can I take it again? Can I redo this? I think it's different than just offering everyone the opportunity to do the thing instead of someone coming to you and said, look, here's my circumstance. I really need a second chance at this. I don't want to fail. I don't want to get a C. That was kind of my thing. And may I please? And I think, just giving everyone, the buffet of, we'll just do it 3, 5, 6, 8 times until you get 50% is a little bit different.
Well, remember the lowest they can get is 50%. So even if they do
Good God.
nothing, they're still given 50%, a grade of 50%. So if they do the minimum, they're getting more than 50%.
Right.
The,
It has
and
changed so much.
yeah, and my point is, does that really help the students? Does that give them more confidence in their abilities? Does it give them more confidence in the wisdom or knowledge they acquire? Does it, better prepare them for the future? Or does it do the opposite? Do people naturally hold in high regard or respect something that was given to them and everyone else, something that's easy for anyone and everyone to receive freely? I mean, what do y'all think? Am I, tell me I'm nuts. Tell me I'm wrong. But I think so much
I
of this,
can't.
self-esteem and social promotions and, always offering, body positivity and whatever else, I think ultimately that inures to the detriment of the kids.
And participation trophies, no one loses.
Yeah, it's like, all this no zero homework policy is an aspect of equitable grading. It's called equitable grading. And to me, it's anything but equitable. It penalizes those who work to perfect their knowledge, to improve their abilities, and
Mhm.
it rewards those who don't. I mean, is that not a perversion of the true meaning of the word equity? If you look at Webster's, the definition is a justice according to law or right, freedom from bias. It is a term of justice, and there is no justice, my opinion, seeing no effort, no contribution as equally valid as genuine effort and individual contribution. I think we're ending up hurting these kids. Also, the poll is
Yeah.
up. Just
Huh?
wanted to tell you, the poll is up.
Did you do it?
So,
Huh?
yeah, I got it up.
Okay. Because I'm trying to get where Brentwood can do them herself. I'm working on that as well at the same time.
Cool.
Um, what's going on? Okay. I
Now
fly
we're
me,
going to look at
Brentwood.
some of the impacts of education, the current school generation, which I think is, you know, a fair examination. They've been under this kind of school administration for most of their academic lives, educational lives. Here is an article from the New York Post. Why it's titled "Why Bed Rotting is the Newest Hot Self-Care Trend for Lazy Gen Zers."
What does that
Bed
mean?
bed rotting. It's where you lay in bed all day.
Okay.
Their goal, the goal is to lay in bed, not get up.
Okay.
And this trend, this fad is while 56% of 16 to 27-year-olds are overweight or obese, making them the heaviest generation in history at an age when they should be in prime health. You know, Gen Z, does that stand for Generation Zombie?
It
You know,
should.
what generation is next? Generation Marshmallow? You know,
I I think it's Generation Alpha is the next one,
got to
which
be
is
Generation Marshmallow. Get it? I'm going to
I,
change it here, right now.
I think it's Alpha, and it's fucking scary to me.
The I'm really looking forward, as a former healthcare kind of person, I'm really looking forward to the explosion of type 2 diabetes as it strikes more and more of these kids earlier and earlier. The healthcare system is going to love that. Type 2 diabetes increases your chance of cardiac events by 7 times. Hell, I even see ads in the news and media encouraging body positivity as young people engage in more and more things that will inure to their future pain and detriment.
Wait, so Lizzo is she's in then, like, because she loves to show videos of her eating every single freaking thing she can and love being overweight. I think that's so dangerous.
Yeah,
Kids,
and understand, I'm not, throwing stones in a glass house. I had my knee surgeries, was down for a year. Then I had,
mhm.
some tumor issues on my thyroid. Just couldn't get up and get in the gym and sustain any physical activity for literally several years. Sat on my ass and ate. So I gained, 65, 70 pounds. Now I've lost 35, still losing, though it's slowed down a lot. And I know I've still got, another 20, 25 to lose. So I'm not casting aspersions at anybody that has, gained weight, but I am telling you it's bad for your health. I'm telling you that it is wrong for us to accept or encourage bad habits for young kids, to encourage them in bad habits that will inure to their detriment and future complications down the road. I
But
just find
Moffat,
that contemptible.
you and I agree, and you and I talked about not too long ago. I think it was a few days ago about I was stopping to grab a bite on the way to my grandfather's house, and I was like, he's like, "Did you get something to eat?" I was like, "Yeah, it's like lunchroom school pizza." He was like, "I used to like that." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's crap." I mean, I get like the memories of it, but it's not good for kids. And I hate to say this, but the even like the Native Americans, right? The food subsidies they get from the US government cover things like potato chips, high fructose corn syrup items, lots of high fructose corn syrup cereals. Everything that's bad for you is pretty much covered. And over half their population over the age of 35 is diabetic. you gotta take care of yourself. You've got to have the vegetables. You've got to stop the snacking. You've got to do the things. And I mean, I'm heavier than I want to be, but at the same time, it's like, oh, look, Carson's here. But the government does not love you. They do not care. The education system does not give two shits about you or your children.
Our diets have worsened over the past 50, 60 years. Even the vegetables we eat, like the tomatoes, they grow faster. They're less disease resistant. They preserve longer on your cabinet top, on your countertop, but they have half or a third the nutritional value that traditional tomatoes, historical tomatoes did, heirloom tomatoes do. Now,
You
those
have to
tomatoes
eat.
will rot on your countertop in 3 days. You can't keep them 2 weeks. But are people aware of that?
You would have to eat like 55 carrots to get the same nutrition as one carrot 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, and Carson, we are about to get to this.
Yeah. The the idea with the food, you are what you eat. And
Hmm.
I am not necessarily condemning foods that are more disease resistant, insect resistant, etc., because that has enabled us as a world to produce enough food to feed everybody in the world for the first time in
But
history.
we grew more food than we needed. It was most of it was tossed out,
Well, the
right?
thing is, we
But
don't
we
have the
and they, it was
logistic system to transport it to everywhere it's needed.
and then Monsanto has done its lovely job in poisoning everyone.
But the simple fact is we are producing enough food for everybody to eat for the first time in history. That's a good thing.
There's no
But for
nutrients in it, but
well,
okay,
compared to starvation,
I get
it's
it.
a hell of a lot more nutritious. But my point is that for those of us who have the ability to pick and choose healthier foods, I think we need to do a better job of educating kids as to what they're eating so that they can make better decisions. We don't educate people. We don't encourage them to find out about, their nutritional requirements and their intake.
And whose fault is
It's
that?
it's not a quick and easy study. Well, we're just talking about education and all the
Yeah.
things we fail to teach kids. We don't teach them how to grow their own food, much less the content of their food. We don't teach them how to do, how to prepare food. Yeah, how many kids, get out of high school and can't boil an egg? And I'm not kidding. I've seen, people who honestly don't know how to boil an egg or make, a basic hamburger. So, just what do schools do with the kids for 8 hours a day?
Well,
It's just
indoctrinate them pretty
yeah.
much. Okay, we got a bunch of comments here. Okay, heirloom
Carson, the only
tomatoes.
reason
Oh,
okay.
sorry.
Melissa. All right, one at a
We'll start
time.
there.
The only reason for education cares about children is for funding. Like Ellen said, we are about to get into that. So I'm going to hold that comment for a minute. Melissa, heirloom tomatoes are the best. The flavor is far better than a lot of the more current grooms. They don't store as long, but they're, if you can them, you can capture a lot of the flavor and, preserve them for longer.
Oh, I'm trying. There you went. Okay.
Feed the plants to your animals and eat the animals.
Sorry, Melissa.
Sorry, Melissa. Kind of knew that was coming. Heirloom
Yeah.
tomatoes taste amazing. There's just such a big difference between, picking one from the vine in your garden or planter, whatever you've got, little pot, versus what you buy from the store.
I wish we could grow those here, but
Yeah,
we
we have
can't.
we have too many deer, and our
We have
porch is too covered, too much
and we
get enough sun.
And the island has too many rats, and they love to eat the tomatoes. Oh, I love homegrown tomatoes, and I wish that the soil was just not so
It's very sandy,
depleted.
loamy here. Yeah,
No, I mean in the world, not so depleted of. You know who has the best soil?
Iowa.
Ukraine.
Ukraine has very good soil too. I've been traveling through Iowa in the fall where they're turning over the fields and the dirt is just pitch black. They're turning it over, 8, 10 inches deep, and it's just pitch black. Absolutely beautiful. Carson, feed the fish for Melissa. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
Carson, we definitely
Yep.
have a deer garden.
It's called long stem roses. They love
Yeah.
them. They just
Yeah.
chomp those little turds up.
Those are some of my father's roses, and I'm a little bit protective of them, but a lot of houses have been built around here, so most of the deer have been chased off. They're not as big of a threat as they used to be.
Yeah, but they love those long stem hybrid
They love the fresh
roses.
shoots, any fresh shoots. Yeah, they're sweet on the roses. All right, we're talking about Gen Z and education, the
Okay.
product of the educational system.
Carson said he will feed fish for Melissa.
Yeah, by 2025, Gen Z will be 1/4 of the workforce. And
That's
Gen
so
Zers have
scary.
pretty much borne the brunt of the ineptitude. It is scary. And, this is bad news for everyone. If you look, even companies are struggling with hiring Gen Z. They aren't enjoying hiring them. They don't want to hire them. They're difficult to work with as a group. Not every Gen Zer, but as a group. They have extremely poor communication and interpersonal skills, dynamics. Training them is hard due to their poor math and English skills. Um, their interpersonal skills make them harder to train. They simply don't value the opportunity to learn and improve. And they leave quickly if they become dissatisfied. If they don't think their company has a sufficient, let's save the world attitude, they're not happy. They have a greater sense of entitlement and are more narcissistic than they are concerned with the success of the company. So they're just not vested in the company's success. And that's hard to develop good qualified employees. I-
Yeah, it
You know,
is.
the main problem according to studies is that Gen Zers lack what's called emotional intelligence, which is absolutely a critical soft skill.
Now wait, I have a question about that. So I mean, you would think emotional intelligence, um, they're all about their own emotions, right?
That's not what it is.
Okay.
S- Strong emotional intelligence is really what we would consider a natural or uh, holistic outlook. It's the ability to manage and control one's own emotions. Now, we've all seen some videos of somebody hysterical. I saw one the other day. I couldn't find it, but it was a woman being pulled over by a police officer just for, simple traffic violation. And she was just losing her shit. I don't know of another word for it. Um, and you see more and more of these videos. Now, it may be just because more and more is captured, but I think it's just the generation and the changes in society. The high EIs also better understand the emotions of those around them. And this is a big problem for Gen Zers. They get so wrapped up in their own emotions, they're not as tolerant of others' emotions or thoughts. High EI is a protective factor for suicidal behavior. So what do we see in the Gen Zers? We see more depression, more mental illness, higher suicide rates.
True.
Lower EI is, higher EI is a big protector from such self-destructive acts, according to a Harvard study.
Well, do you trust Harvard? I
You
mean,
know,
I'm sorry.
I was kind of about to repeat that because you got to have some issues, but here's the study.
I
And,
don't
like
trust
I say, if you
anything Harvard says. I'm sorry. They have discredited themselves. So I'm just
Sure.
like, don't even tell me. I don't care. But
Yeah,
that's just me.
I can't fault that, but if somebody, obviously if I throw up a study or whatever and you want a copy, just email me, DM me. I try to throw them up long enough so that you can see the title and search for it. But emotional intelligence is a big factor and the schools aren't teaching it. What does
I don't know, man. It's
they're both pretty close. They've both taken some big hits this past couple months in terms of their reputation. Now, emotional intelligence, it includes self-regulation, motivation, social skills, the ability to listen. The ability to listen being more important than the ability to talk. The ability to respect others' opinions, especially when they're different from yours. And how many of these are taught or emphasized in schools? And how many schools teach or emphasize the opposite? Think about it. Are kids getting, more respectful or less? Are they developing better social skills or worse? Do they have improving the ability to listen? Do they understand listening is more important than talking? Are they motivated? Can they control their emotions? And if you ask people those questions, now if I sit here and say Gen Zs have lower emotional intelligence, people kind of buck, particularly Gen Zers. But then if you go down this list and ask these specific questions, they're like, well, maybe. You'll bottom line, my point is you will never see schools improve, never see schools improve if they don't start teaching and encouraging resiliency, personal discipline. They just won't.
they don't have personal discipline. They don't know how to.
Yeah, instead of teaching personal discipline and resiliency, schools are offering students safe spaces and they punish those with different beliefs than those accepted by academia.
If you need a safe space for being a human, I'm sorry, but that's just the most ridiculous freaking thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, it is. But it almost has become normal. Ah. Now,
Mm,
some people are trying to fight the trends.
yeah,
One of these,
me.
and this is an outtake, this outtake of a little video. This is a woman that some would call a racist, a hater, whatever. Her name is Tiffany Justice.
Love her.
She's a former school board member in Florida, and she's co-founder of Moms for Liberty.
Can I
So
give a
this
little
is yeah,
background on
go ahead.
this? The Southern Poverty Law Center has listed her, the group that she founded, Moms for Liberty, is a extremist radical group because they don't want sexualized books in elementary schools. Okay, I'll let you go. Sorry.
No, you're good. So
And
here's
they,
a
I thought you said I was good. Which one is it? They don't want to teach CRT. They don't want to try to make
yeah,
racism more of a thing than it is. Anyway,
Yeah,
go
we're
ahead.
kind of all adults here. They don't think third graders should be, reading and viewing books showing, you know,
Blowjobs.
blowjobs and anal sex and,
Mm-hmm.
whatever else.
Dildos
They
and
ought to just
everything.
be kids. So,
Mm-hmm.
but thought this was kind of an interesting outtake. So here we go for a minute or two.
100% school board. And it's been so ignored. I mean, the unions have been running school board elections for years. And so when I was on school board, I would watch. The union would have people on the school board, and then they would be at the bargaining table as well. They're just bargaining against each other. And it's all about adult wants and not about kids' needs.
Unpack that.
Well, so is your kid eating lunch at 9:30 in the morning? You've got little kids. So if they eat breakfast at home and then they go to school and they eat lunch at 9:30 in the morning, by 12 o'clock, they're going to be pretty hungry, 1 o'clock, right? But they're probably eating lunch because the bargaining contract says that they have to. We had early release days that were once a month, every Wednesday, where kids would get out at 12 o'clock, and it wasn't working for parents. What are parents supposed to do? Once a month on a Wednesday to have their kids be released early. The union knew that it was something that parents didn't like, and they used it as a bargaining chip. New York City public schools. Right now, you can't go to back to school night in person or meet your teacher night in person because it's in the bargaining contract. The union actually put in the bargaining contract that parents can't come into schools in person for back to school night. Like, why? What is going on? And then when you look at the unions and their summer, if you could pull up the unions. Agenda for their summer meetings. They talk about abortion. They talk about foreign aid in Ukraine. They talk about all these different things. Guess what they don't talk about? Kids' educations. So I don't have a problem with unions in general. I understand, if workers want to come together and advocate for, good wages and all of those things. The problem with the teachers' unions are that they pretend like they are representing families and kids. They pretend like they have the kids' best interests at heart, and that's just not true. And so I continue. I wanted to debate Randy Weingarten. I continue to ask her to have a conversation with me. She refuses to. That's actually how I got on Joy Reid. Joy had said she would moderate a debate between me and Randy wouldn't come.
Before you say anything, if you've seen the Joy Reid interview with Tiffany Justice, Joy Reid has lost her freaking mind. She attacked her for Tiffany's stance on boys are not blue, are not always blue, or whatever the hell that book is. And she was like, no, I just don't think it's appropriate for K through 8. And it's not. It gives details, very graphic details about this kid being sexually abused by one of his cousins. It's not okay for kids to read that. It's not when you have a limited amount of space, money, and access. Don't you want science books to be in there? Don't you want great literature to be in there? Don't you want math books to be in there? But instead, it's just a lot of freaking pornography. And I find that absolutely despicable.
It's like, Tiffany was kind of pointing out the purpose and goal of schools have changed. Throughout most of our history, the goal, the dedication, the teacher's effort, everything was about educating the kids and helping the kids develop and have a chance at a better life for them and their families. Who can honestly say that's still the focus of schools? Teachers in schools are either focused on protecting themselves, their careers, their longevity, their increased pay, or they're focused on, inculcating the students with a series of values that match their own political preference and whimsies.
I need my emotional support dog after,
Yeah.
hearing all that.
Tiffany, started the discussion here on focusing on the boards and the union. What are schools really in the business of? Well, this is a graph that shows the growth in administration. The blue line down here, plus 8%, is the percentage change in the number of students since 2000. The green line, which closely parallels it, is the percentage change in teachers. Now, the interesting lines are the kind of baby puke orange
Gross.
at plus 37%. These are the principals and assistant principals percentage increase, percentage change. This red line that literally is going exponential is the administrative staff percentage change. So when you look at this, you've got, a corresponding change in students and teachers. Meanwhile, the administration and bureaucracy is where all the money's going. Schools are, I'll say it again, schools are no longer in the business of educating kids. They are in the
administer it.
business of administering it. Their main goal is to accrue power and money for themselves and their ideologies. With these kind of results that we're seeing, the extent of the failure, particularly in poor and inner city schools, it's no mistake. It's by design. Is why no one gets fired, why no teachers or principals are replaced, why schools consistently, year after year after year, graduate students who can't perform at their grade level or anywhere near it. This is a feature, not a bug.
Well, they're hoping for that because they want to control the minds of the generation. I know we've done a lot of shorts recently of Yuri Bezmenov and how the whole mind control thing goes with, America, how the Russians kind of planned all this. I know that's a conspiracy theory or whatever. But they're stupid. They just believe anything that somebody tells them but it's the best thing for your emotions and it's the best thing for everyone else. And, you have to be accepting and you have to be it. Come on, people. Seriously?
Well, remember, I said a while back, for the last 2 years, IQ has dropped in this country as Gen Zers, start to mature, get more into the, young adult population, start taking IQ tests or whatever. IQ is dropping for the first time in our history.
My
It's
IQ
not a
drops every
feature.
time I watch MSM,
Yeah, that's not a
mainstream
bug.
media.
It's a
It's a
feature.
feature. I know.
You can't get this consistent track record of failure unless it's by design. It's
And
no
it
accident.
is.
This is not a recent phenomenon. This has been the trend steadily for 2 decades. Easy. Now, what's the future hold? What's ahead for schools? Kind of begs the question. Well, the latest 2023 House survey published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that homeschooling is on the rise, having doubled from 2019 to 5.4% of all students are now being homeschooled. Interestingly, the greatest trend in that we see is those families with incomes below 75,000. Black households have increased homeschooling to 6.3%. That's more than double the 2019 number.
Even black families understand that critical race theory is a horrible idea. They get it.
Yeah, the most important reason that the parents say they're doing homeschooling are by far two reasons. School environment. How safe is your school? Do gangs roam your school? Are kids getting beat up, assaulted, intimidated, whatever.
Do
School
boys go in the
environment.
girls' bathroom?
We don't maintain safe schools.
No, we don't.
Secondly, academic instruction. Those were by far the two most prominent reasons for the majority of respondents. And these parents are innovating. They're forming pods.
Which is good.
Small groups of students gather at a single house to do schoolwork together and interact. It's kind of a revival. Think of it as a revival, or I picture it as a revival of the one-room school. Groups of specialists will also get together or start micro schools where the students get instruction in advanced and technical subject. The good thing is, good or bad thing, depending on whose ox is getting gored. These parents, these special instructors don't have to have a state teaching certificate.
Nope.
You might have, for example, a nuclear engineer whose company gives them a few hours off a week to teach high school kids calculus.
Or
He
this
might
guy volunteer to do so.
Well, yeah, but the company gives him time off during the day. They support it. There's a lot of people that I've talked to that would love to teach, but don't have a state teaching certificate. You can have microbiology researchers and chemists who would really enjoy teaching a high school biology or chemistry class. These guys are passionate about their subject. They have all sorts of ideas for, in class kind of fun exhibits or things to do or results. They're not limited by pedagogical methods that they, learned 20 years ago in educational programs, but they can't do it because they don't have a state teaching degree, and they have to give up their jobs, go to school for 3 or 4 years to get it. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Let me ask you this. Okay. So if you do these, homeschooled teaching, pods or online recorded, there's, oh God, what's it called? The Khan Academy, who does a lot of, why is my light going weird? Who does a lot of classes for students. And it's free. It's online. But what ADHD, I think I had a point here. It was that why wouldn't even, someone take time out on the weekend, do the thing, and why is that not valid if you have entrepreneurs and scientists and engineers giving this instruction on a podcast, on a pod stream, on a
yeah, don't get me started on online and whatever education. Not a fan of that. I'm talking about in-person education, which is by almost every metric far better, particularly for the hard sciences.
Oh yeah. But if you have somebody who's willing to do that, let's say go to an auditorium somewhere with a bunch of homeschool kids and do that, because most homeschool kids do most of their stuff online. That's a fact. So why wouldn't that be okay? And why isn't that counted as a class? Because they just have to take tests, right?
No,
To
they
get through their
actually have
grade?
pods. They actually have in-person instruction. Now, for the advanced subjects, sometimes they'll be online. There are online classes available, but most homeschools, like a church, will open up some of its rooms during the week. And, a parent who has a advanced math degree, or, an engineer. You might have a woman who got an engineering degree, decided to stay at home, be it mom. She, teaches math a day or two a week at this church, and all the homeschoolers come and attend. I say, there'll be a class of 5 or 10 kids. You know,
My daughter was homeschooled for 3 years.
yeah, like I say, they do have online, but most of
Okay.
it is done by parents
Because I've
and
never seen
the
that.
supportive schools. Yeah,
Okay.
I've seen it for decades. Known a lot of people that have gone through it. There are also materials that parents can buy where they, basically sit with their kids and work through, some of these things.
Okay,
When you
so
think about
since
teaching your kid at home, you got to keep in mind that at schools, only 30 minutes a day on average is dedicated to new material. The rest of the time generally is study halls, playtime, teachers trying to, review something on occasion, lunch, whatever. There's very little instruction that actually goes on every day in a school.
all right, here we go. Oh,
Susan, you are over the target. The educational system in this country has been commandeered. Every parent needs to get involved and demand transparency and change. And that's a big key to me. And, I was going to mention that because I find it almost ironic when schools are struggling, they'll say, well, we need more parental involvement. The parents ought to, we need more active support from the parents. And then if the parents actually do try to get involved and start criticizing or, wanting to review the curriculum or, some of the lack of proper discipline or whatever, they're told, no, we're teachers, we're the professionals, we're educators, leave it to us. So as soon as the parents start trying to get involved, the school board, the teachers, the principals discourage them from actually getting involved. So I find it, I don't know, I find it fascinating. I find it frustrating. I find it terribly irritating. I'm just thankful I don't have a kid in the school system anymore because I'd be extremely upset.
and my daughter was homeschooled, correct?
Yes.
She
Her last
was
few years, 3 years,
she was
last
in
3 years, last 2 years.
last 3.5.
Okay.
She was harassed by one of her male classmates. She was bullied by his family. His sister, older sister, and basically her high school just said, this is your problem. You got to change your schedule. You got to do something different. And she's the sweetest child on the planet. I think Clay she just means no harm to anyone, anytime. She's just so kind. And they wanted her to change everything, and they wouldn't do anything, even though I was up there, like every other day for a year, and nothing. And I was just like, okay. And she said, Mom, I want to do something different. I want to homeschool. I said, okay, make me a PowerPoint. Show me the options that you have, and we'll do it. She did. And I was like, all right, then you really mean it. You want to do it. I mean, this kid was like showing up outside the window when she was in therapy at school, because they love to provide that kind of stuff for kids. And they did nothing. They said it was her fault. Screw
Yeah,
that.
we have spent very little time on school environment. We've not even touched the increasing violence in schools.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost a topic for another night. So, there's an increased movement toward homeschool. There's also increasing pressure or movement toward government vouchers, where the government, instead of paying the school system or the state bulk, millions, billions of dollars for education, it actually sends a voucher to every school parent, every parent of school children for each student for the government's portion of tuition. The
But the
parent
problem
then can
is
use it public,
they
private, or
can't cash it
homeschool.
in.
Yeah,
They
they can.
can't cash it in. They can?
Yes, they
Okay.
can. They can use it for homeschools.
No shit.
You know, you could have a nuclear engineer give up his full-time job and teach, 10 kids math at varying levels 3 or 4 or 5 days a week and be paid, 3, 4, $5,000 every 6 months or 4 months by the parents.
Wait, but you have to pay a teacher or because I paid for my daughter's online school myself.
Yes.
I didn't get
Yes.
a freaking voucher. Nobody sent me crap.
Well, the vouchers haven't been approved yet by the national government, by Congress.
Okay.
I'm just saying there's a movement toward it.
Okay.
And parents would be free to hire another parent or a professional. If you were a teacher in the public schools, a good teacher, and you were frustrated with the environment at schools, you could quit the public school and my point is you can make twice the money teaching classes half the size
Oh God,
at
yeah.
your house.
And
So-
make so much more progress with the kids than
Yeah,
you
you'd
could in a
have
classroom.
far smaller students. You wouldn't have any bureaucracy. You teach the way you want to teach using the tools you want to. You have to
Yep.
buy a chalkboard or a whiteboard, whatever you want to use.
Those are cheap. Or they were.
Yeah.
They were
And then,
cheap.
yeah, most of the stuff needed to teach is not expensive. And there are very good, educational packages you can buy that are grade appropriate that you can walk your own child through teaching them at home, hour a day, hour and a half a day. The bottom line is homeschool kids perform far better on standardized tests and in college than do public school kids.
Yeah, because it's
So-
tailored kind of to where they are.
Well,
And
the focus is on education.
Yeah. Not
they're-
ideology and social construct and
or,
whether you're a girl or a boy.
getting a pay raise. Now, many people argue that, government vouchers shouldn't be used because they're taxpayer funds. It takes money away from public schools. They recoil at the very notion that government money could be spent anywhere other than a government institution. And I kind of laugh because,
Wait, that's our tax money, our kids.
well, I kind of laugh because, as is typical for these groups, they kind of ignore reality. Most government tuition for higher ed goes to non-government schools, private or religious schools. Head Start
Uh-huh.
programs, the Head Start programs for pre-K, most of that goes to religious schools, kindergartens, pre-kindergartens. Food stamps don't require recipients to spend the money only at government grocery stores. That's the way most government entitlements and spending programs
Wait.
are handled. The individual decides.
Wait, government grocery stores.
Don't exist unless you're on a base.
Unless you're in Chicago. Now they do.
Well, the city's trying to run a few. That won't last long.
No, so government grocery stores are kind of taking over Chicago because the actual people that own grocery store chains said, excuse me, fuck it. We're not doing it.
Yeah, that
Because
won't
we
last
get
long.
stolen from every single day.
Brentwood, the attitudes kids have toward teachers these days astonishes me. The teachers
Mhm.
can't do much about it. So many schools see discipline as a negative thing or a bad thing. They just completely and totally fail that discipline isn't only good for education, it's a necessary prerequisite. You can't teach kids without discipline, without maintaining order and discipline and safety. Kids that are scared for their life, scared of being raped, scared of being beat up, you're not going to be able to teach them much.
Nope.
Kids in a class with other kids laughing, cutting up, throwing paper balls, paper airplanes, yelling at the teacher. Nobody in that class is going to learn anything. You cannot have proper education without discipline.
You know what they'll learn to do? They'll learn to walk into the United States. They will learn to beat up cops. They will learn to not get bail for that, or get bail, or no bail. They had nothing. And then to flip off the media when they walk out of the jail. That's what having no discipline does.
I look at all this chaos in the modern schools, the attitudes of the kids, lack of discipline, the failure to teach much of anything. And I think, about the old one-room schoolhouses, kids studying by night at candlelight. For example, Philadelphia newspapers between 1740 and 1776, they offered instruction, private classes in Latin, Greek, mathematics. The math included calculus, surveying, sea navigation, and accounting. You had, science, English, contemporary foreign languages, in addition to Latin and Greek. This was just widely advertised, like in the help wanted section of the newspapers, for parents looking to have their kids schooled in advanced topics. Most parents would teach their kids to read and write and basic grammar. In fact, America, the colonial America, was the most literate population in the world, with the exception being Scotland by 1800. And these classes, the calculus, the surveying, the Latin, Greek, the contemporary foreign languages, were for children up to the age of 12. Incompetent, inefficient teachers were eliminated since they were not subsidized by the state or protected by a union.
Why can't we do that now? I don't understand why that's not a thing now.
It gets even better. Several of the founding fathers had no college education. Ben Franklin, George Washington,
right?
Patrick Henry had zero college. Ben Franklin only completed 2 years of school. He taught himself 5 languages: French, German, Italian, Spanish, and English. Yep. And he was extremely well-read and versed in the great literature of the day, philosophical, historical.
Would you trust a 20-some-year-old to write the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Federalist Papers right now?
Right now, they couldn't even read those documents. They're written in cursive.
But you know what I'm saying? Yeah. They were in their 20s. And now our 20-year-olds seem to just be useless. I'm sorry.
Well, they're only semi-literate. When you compare the literacy of today versus 1776, back in 17 mid-late 1700s, Thomas Paine was publishing Common Sense. Mm-hmm. Well, over 20% of the population, the U.S. population at that time, purchased Common Sense regularly. Now, according to the data that I found from the National Assessment of Adult Literacy, only 13% of Americans have attained the literary skills necessary to read or comprehend what was routine literature in the colonies, weekly publications.
How effed up is that?
They were actually far better read, far more literate than we are today.
I mean, it's just like, why do we even bother at this point? It's like, how do we fix it?
So, it begs the question, have we advanced academically for the common man? Have we advanced or have we regressed academically?
I think we monetized it to the point the government just wants the money and the institutions want the money. And it doesn't matter. And it's more of a social project than it is actual academia.
Yeah, it's just, you know,
It's fucking sad, is what it is.
it is. We don't have the literacy. We don't have the safety.
Nope.
We don't have the manners. So
We
are
don't
we
have
advancing?
respect. They
Are
don't
we
have
advancing as a
respect.
society or are we regressing as a society?
I think we're being destroyed.
That's kind of the question of the night. Is it a feature or is it a bug?
It's a
Can you
feature.
spend the amount of money we spend? Can you have the consistent performance, or should I say lack of performance, that we have in modern American education and think, oh, it's an accident, or oh, we don't know how to teach these things, or oh, kids are unique and different today. We
No.
have to come up with a wholly new view of education. Susan.
Well, hang on real quick before you get to that. I mean, I'm Gen X. We were savages. We were left to our own devices. We were the first latchkey kids. We did all the things by ourselves. We fed ourselves. And I don't want to hear any sob stories from millennials or Gen Zs or anybody. It's like, come on. Like, is it the parents? Is it the government? Is it society? What is going on? Because it's crazy. Sorry.
Susan, the education system has been co-opted by people who want to destroy Western civilization.
Yeah.
I want to be objective on this show. Now, we've all got personal views, feelings, thoughts, whatever. And,
I agree, Susan.
for some people viewing the show, some of this, a lot of this will be new. But if you look at, like I say, the amount of money going into it, if you look at the consistency of the results, if you look at where the results are focused, the rich schools, the upper schools,
They don't
they
teach anything.
find teachers who can teach.
Teach what?
I'm talking about the upper schools
Like
in upper
Harvard?
class areas. No, I'm
Okay.
talking about elementary and
Okay.
high schools. Okay.
Gotcha.
They can get decent or good student performance. I still don't think it's comparable to what students had in the 1770s. I mean, 12-year-old to go to college would have mastered calculus, would be relatively fluent in at least 2 foreign languages, probably Latin and Greek, would have mastery of scientific studies at that time, and would be extensively read in the great literature of civilization, would be able to sit and talk for hours about Locke, Rutherford, Hume, ancient civilizations. Now, what 12-year-old do you know that can do that, much less 16, 17-year-old that's trying to get into college?
Moffat, I have a challenge. If any of you have children who are, let's say, 8 to 14, I challenge you to get an appropriate book that is, at least somewhat factual. Don't get all the weird stuff out there. Sit down and let them read it to you and see if they can actually read, comprehend, understand the book they're reading. And that is a very good indicator of how well they're being educated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I want to say funny, but it's not funny to give images or pictures of the Constitution or the Declaration of Independence and have, a high school student read it. Most of them can't read it because they can't read cursive, which to me is extremely telling. Thank you, Ellen's decades-long initiative. Your Bezimov series was not without merit.
I really do
She did.
appreciate that. Thank you.
She has labored mightily on that. She really has. Brentwood
something that
Society seems
It's something I really believe in and think that people should know because it's something that is so not talked about. It's like the big white elephant in the corner of the room. I think people should understand what's going on.
well, again, do you get this kind of degradation in, systemic education, system-wide education without there being a plan? Is it all a coincidence schools across the country suck and suck worse on a regressive trend?
Yeah.
Is that not does that not show evidence of design, of intent? If it doesn't, I don't know what would. And I mean that honestly as a professional researcher. You know,
It is not coincidence.
it is just too widespread, too
Mhm.
consistent, and too strong of a trend. Brentwood, society seemed less enlightened the more progressive we become. And I think that's a
Uh,
big key right there.
I think enlightenment and progressiveness are just the exact opposites of each other.
Yeah, our progression has come without context, without meaning,
Hmm.
without value.
Yep.
In fact, it has labored mightily to replace and obfuscate values.
Damn it, Carson.
Welcome back, Carson.
Yeah, I think it's too much of a coincidence that, the whole world is starting to believe the exact same thing and Americans are the only ones not buying into it at this point, except, okay, here's a new fun fact. 42% of the world is voting this year, right? You got Malay, right, who was elected, and the guy from in El Salvador, give me the name, can't remember.
From El Salvador or from
Mhm.
Argentina?
Both, actually.
Argentina
Well,
is Malay.
yeah, I just said that. El Salvador, he's cleaned that up. He's not on the progressive boat. Um,
Bukele.
yes. Okay. We're on the same page now.
Yes.
And the liberals are terrified. They are terrified that all of these 42% of the world is voting this year. They've got 2 wins thus far. If Trump wins, they're going to lose their damn mind.
Yeah, I just saw Malay and Trump met the other day,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it was it was funny.
It's
But I don't
beautiful.
know if y'all have kept up with what's going on in Argentina. It has taken Malay 9 weeks to balance the budget. He
Think about
literally
that.
he
9
literally
freaking
laid
weeks.
off he literally laid off 50% of the government employees, closed down a number of divisions, departments, or whatever.
If we could shut down the 3-letter bureaucratic agencies that have absolutely zero oversight in this country, USA, we would be so much better off.
Yeah. And,
Seriously.
if you look at student performance and results, if you look at teacher difficulty, complaints, whatever, they're relatively well correlated with the establishment of the Department of Education.
Oh, the DOE is the worst.
So, and it's It's interesting. Speaking of the federal government,
Oh, I
Ellen,
love
sent
this.
this letter to me, and it's from Senator Josh Hawley out of Missouri, and he points out. I hope you can see it or read it. Again, if you want a copy of anything that I use, just email me at moffatonmoney@gmail.com or DM me on Twitter, moffatonmoney. But Holly is writing this to Secretary Mayorkas, the head of Homeland Security. Homeland Security.
Can you make it slightly bigger? Just so it fills up the width-wise.
Well, let's say again. Whoops.
There. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's as big as it goes without blowing off the
Okay.
screen. Says, he writes, Dear Secretary, according to new reports, the Department of Homeland Security paid an activist group $700,000 to write blog posts that criticize Donald Trump and other conservatives under the guise of media literacy. Your department has weaponized the federal government to attack conservatives using taxpayer dollars. He goes on and he points out University of Rhode Island's Media Education Lab was given a grant to create counter propaganda. This was given through a terrorism grant program, which provides funding to prevent targeted violence and terrorism. Well, in the application to earn the grant, the lab wrote it would address propaganda and misinformation concerning topics including immigration, racial justice, coronavirus, and the vaccination. $700,000 to write a program to counter misinformation on coronavirus, vaccination, immigration, and calling it terrorism prevention.
And hang on, there was something else in there you missed.
Yeah, no, I haven't missed it. I just hadn't gotten to it yet.
Okay, sorry.
We all tell Ellen to cool her jets.
Well,
All right. He goes on and he talks about the prior year gave a grant to, last year the department gave a grant to University of Dayton to fight domestic violent extremism and hate movements. Well, it was given to the Human Rights Center, who hosted a seminar which the Christian Broadcast Network, the National Rifle Association, Fox News, and other conservative organizations were labeled neo-Nazi and white supremacist. It's interesting. So he points out the Department of Homeland Security is giving away, in these two programs alone, about $1.2 million. Well, sorry, a little over $1 million in taxpayer funds, Department of Homeland Security, to use in advocating the administration's to use in advocating the administration's political positions. That's not really my opinion of what government should be doing. I don't care if Trump was president and spending millions of dollars to try to advocate against Democrat positions. That's not, in either case, that's not what government should be doing. Government departments shouldn't be weaponized as political agents of the ruling party. Carson's still making some comments here. Making it slightly bigger is what she said. You are not old, Ellen. She is definitely not old.
I'm just responding right now. I got 10 years on you, you motherfucker.
We are only middle-aged. Don't overage us.
There you go.
Oh.
I got 10 years on you.
So, that kind of sums up, my views, thoughts on education. Its performance, its future.
It's fucked. Is basically what we're saying.
When what's it going to take to clean it up? I think the public education system is by and large so far gone that it's kind of beyond reforming. And that's where I guess I see vouchers coming in, because all of a sudden these lousy, horrible inner city schools, schools are in poor neighborhoods, schools in middle class neighborhoods will have competition, and they will not be funded, because I think most parents will choose for their kids the better education. Parents, I believe by and large, most parents want their kids to have a good education, but they're locked into a system where they have no choice, they have no influence, they have no say, they have no control. It's their kid, but they have no influence in how he's educated or not. Their voices are, fall on deaf ears if they try to talk to principals or the school board.
Hey.
Those
How do you break the system?
You rob it of funds. That's what they value most is money.
Which means
So you
what?
vouchers,
Which means what?
vouchers.
How do you
Gi-
break the system?
Give the parents the money. They will redirect the money toward private schools and homeschools. Public schools will be defunded.
Will teachers make more money? If the teachers from the public schools go and work in small groups for the
They will.
homeschool kids, will
The
they make
good
more
teachers,
money?
the good teachers will make more money. The bad teachers will make less.
I hope the bad teachers will just be out of the game completely.
What parent is going to pay a teacher a couple $1,000, per semester to not teach their kid?
No one. But
No one.
they're single moms, but the vouchers go to the mom.
Yeah.
And there might not be a school set up, but you have like a home classroom with several children.
Right. One mom.
You put in enough money from that voucher in order to pay the teacher do the educating. It seems like the kid ends up better educated, right? The teacher ends up better paid, right? And the single mom can still work her job and probably a little extra on the side with the voucher. So what's the problem?
Yeah, I don't have one. I think right now federal aid is probably somewhere around, I don't know, let's say not for easy math, $9,000 a year per student, 9,000 for 9 months. So divide that into the 2 semesters, fall and spring. You've got $4,500 a semester. So say the parent spends $500 on books and educational materials, and then gives, one parent agrees to be a teacher to oversee and will teach, 8 or 10 kids. Let's say 10 kids for easy math. She'll have them in their home for 2 hours, 4 days a week, whatever.
Huh?
So that parent will charge $4,000 a kid per semester.
Okay.
So they make $8,000 per kid per year.
For a year. Mm-hmm.
Times 10 kids, $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
And they're working 2 hours, 4 hours a day teaching.
Yeah, they don't have
10
to
kids.
work a full schedule because it's easier to teach smaller groups of kids.
Yes. And, they'll have a few extra hours per week grading homework or planning lessons, whatever, which they kind of have now, even with an 8-hour workday.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll have fewer hours, fewer kids, more flexibility. They don't have to do all the bullshit paperwork. I forget what all the forms are named.
Oh, they got so many in the tests and all the fucking shit they got to do. Yeah.
They don't have to do any of that. No bureaucracy, nobody over their heads. They can teach, innovate, create whatever instructional method they want.
Mm-hmm. And tailor it to the group they have in front of them to make it quicker, easier. I mean, it's harder to teach 30 kids who have all the different learning styles than to teach a smaller group of kids. And okay, they're visual, they're auditory, they're kinetic.
Yep.
Got it. I can do it. And Brentwood, I would worry some would take advantage of the vouchers and not use the money how it was intended. How do you think food stamps go? How do you think any government assistance
Yeah.
go? I mean, it's better, in my opinion, I'm sorry, I'm throwing this out there, to have the parents who really care, and there are low income parents who care. I'm not judging anyone, to have that money to teach their kids, and the kids actually learn science, math, history, whatever, and not social justice and trans and all that stuff. That,
Well, the thing
to
is,
me, okay, go ahead.
it's a voucher. It can only be used for the education of the child. So if you don't
Yeah.
educate, if you don't send
Okay.
that child to school somewhere, that voucher is worthless. If you don't educate them at home.
Mhm.
So if you educate them at home, you get to spend the voucher on, educational materials. You'll have to buy, some curriculum from some school. You have to, pod your children with other children, or send them to micro schools for the advanced training. So the money can only be spent on the education of the child.
In states like North Carolina, you actually have to like go and apply that you're homeschooling. This is the thing that we're doing, and this is the education process. And then I guess you can get the check. I don't know exactly how all that works out, but there is a process. I just said, screw it. I'll pay the $1,000 and get 3 years of high school for my daughter.
Yeah, and the students are still subject to the state testing standards.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, I don't know how often they take the test, but at least once a year they'll have to go and sit for their grade level exam. And if they don't score at or above the public school average, they have to go back into the public schools.
Yep.
So I have not heard of a great deal of fraud with school vouchers. It's kind of rigged to where there's a lot of disincentives for just taking the money and not using it.
Yeah,
You
and
can't just take it and spend it on a trip to
right.
Cancun.
And most
It's not a
homeschool
loan. It's not a
students,
gift. It's a voucher.
and if you want to go to college, I don't know, educationally wise,
Yeah.
than public school students.
Yeah. There are several studies that show that homeschool kids consistently outperform public school kids.
Yeah.
Carson, thank you, man. Appreciate you being here. Good to see you. Hope hope you have a good night and that it's not too cold up in the air. Yes, Brentwood, go ahead and end the poll if you will, please.
And what is the result, if you don't mind letting us know?
Yeah, for those of you that are new or watching the show, we kind of have a little family. Love to have you join, but
We do.
these are some of the people that have, where I will say extended friendships have developed. And it is, kind of like a little family. So we just have a good time with each other and a lot of interesting personalities.
Okay, so we've got, from what I can tell here, can you see it on your screen or do you want me to pull it up?
I'm about to post it. See if this works.
Cool.
Well, it didn't work too good, but there's the data. What do you want the educational system to teach? The basic, hard subjects, science, math, reading, 87%. More than one, 12%. Social justice, 0. Gender tolerance, 0. So the poll would only let me do 4 variables. There obviously could be more variables that people prioritize or think that ought to be included in education. I can think several, such as, emotional intelligence. We talked about that, virtue, respect, whatever. So you can you could extend that poll make very easily, but just thought it was, kind of an interesting little thing or a fun thing to get some of y'all's feedback or interest on. And we really do welcome and want your feedback and things you're interested in, comments, good, bad, or indifferent. We don't certainly have never expected anybody to agree with us on everything, but this is a starting point for discussion, a gathering of information. And, I think everybody's in agreement that reasonable and rational people can have different views and agree. The faithful people that watch this show, I would dare say that none of them agree with me 100% of the time.
Hell,
But
I don't even agree with you 100% of the time. So
I don't even agree with me 100% of the time.
no,
But
but
we love everybody.
yeah, and if you have a differing opinion, we'd love to talk to you because I think that conversation is always
Well, that's what
does better
reasonable
than
people
not
do.
having, a conversation. It's instead of just like throwing out, "Oh, you suck, I hate you, you're this, you're that." Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about it.
What's that old song? Let's talk about it. I can't think of who sings it or how it goes, but I know it's a song. We'll talk about it. Anyway.
Yes, thought process is very like if you can't engage in conversation, and if you only throw crap at us, we're just going to be like, okay, then you really don't have a point. If you can't defend it, if you can't have a conversation about it, then
Yeah.
sorry.
If you can't disagree and discuss things rationally, civilly, and sometimes even just agree to disagree, this is probably not the show for you.
No, and,
But
and Clay and I disagree often just in our personal lives. And I'm just like, okay, I don't agree, but that's all right. That's fine. We'll move on.
and I just kind of think that's the way adults should do.
Should
So
do. Should do.
yeah, should do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if you have any other thoughts on education, throw them out.
Clay gets nervous after 9:00. He's like, Ellen is about to go to bed.
Well, just
And- Oh, Carson, we will throw everything at you plus the kitchen sink. How about
yeah,
that?
Carson.
You don't.
Carson has, several times expressed some disagreement
Mm-hmm.
or some additional thought, complimentary or contrary. Sometimes it's not an
appreciate that.
overt disagreement. He's
Mhm.
just expanding on an idea or throwing out additional information, a different perspective. And yes, we do appreciate that. Do have great respect for that. Carson's a sharp guy.
Yeah, and if you can't do that, then I mean, and if you're not brave enough to do that, I highly suggest you get brave enough. What you
Now,
doing?
just want to let me get this off and back on.
What you doing? I'm
Going to
there's
talk
something
just
down there.
briefly about the market.
Okay. It is after 9. I'm gonna let you do the market thing, and I'm gonna go take the pooches out. Love you guys.
All
I've
right.
heard about
Thanks.
this already, so I'm out.
Thanks, E-Trade.
Absolutely.
You have a good night.
You too.
Now, it's an interesting week in the market. It had a pretty strong recovery after Nvidia's earnings came out. But it was kind of fascinating. The S&P rose, I don't know, 2 or 3% this year. I should have looked specifically. But in doing a little historical research, the only times in the past 60 years the S&P rose more than 2% with less than 60% of volume of its normal volume were in the midst or aftermath of the worst crashes, 87, 2008, and 2020, and 2 days ago. For example, NASDAQ is up nearly 3% with fewer than 55% of the issues advancing. There are 5 precedents for that, according to Sentiment Trader, and they occurred between 1999 and 2001. And you've got some, extremely well respected people commenting. Melissa sent a little thing that, real estate is, it was a little fortune cookie, what do you call it? Whatever the hell you call it. Talking about real estate investing is better than stock investing. Made me laugh. Well, a large commercial real estate investor, Barry Sternleak from Starwood Property, said, "There's a giant skeleton in the closet in the regional banks, and I think the Fed is aware of that. I think they're worried." He added U.S. banking system's $2 trillion loan exposure to declining commercial real estate is one big reason for the Federal Reserve to cut rates. I think the Fed wants to cut rates, but we've seen inflation increase for 4 months in a row. So how's the Fed going to cut rates when inflation is, gone from 1% a month to 4% a month? That's going to be tough. So do they keep rates high? If inflation keeps increasing, they're probably going to have to tick them up. And there's another factor that's putting additional pressure on interest rates, forcing interest rates higher. And Stanley Druckenmiller, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Stanley Druckenmiller, but he's one of the greatest investors of our generation. The guy has an average, I hesitate to say this, but he has an extremely high, I'll just say he has an extremely high average return. So he's got a few comments here just for 20 seconds.
We are in deep trouble. By 2027, the interest expense alone on the debt eats all healthcare spending. By 2047, it eats all discretionary spending. By the way, by 49, it eats all Social Security. We're getting to the point now where the interest expense on the debt is so high that it's going to eat up our ability to basically service the next generation. I'm not even sure about the current one.
So that's a hell of a statement. Talking about the interest expense on the national debt, U.S. debt, which the more the U.S. government borrows, the more competition there is for capital in the markets. Or the other alternative is that the Federal Reserve has to print more money, which generates more inflation. Either way, not a good situation, especially when our interest expense is already exceeding what we spend on national defense. It's behind Medicare and Social Security. Now, Druckenmiller, I call him Druck, was saying by 2049 that the interest will pass Social Security. I think, according to the numbers I've run, he's being very conservative. I think we'll probably pass Medicare spending in the next 2 or 3 years. E-Train just came in and was smiling. I think interest expense will surpass what we spend on Medicare in the next few years. And that only leaves Social Security. I don't think it's going to take 20 years for interest expense to surpass Social Security. Social Security is also running out of money. If you remember, the Social Security board said that it would be bankrupt by 2030, which is drawing closer and closer. And, Congress has done nothing to try to fix or patch it. Longer they wait, more expensive it's going to be. And I don't think they'll allow it to fold because the, over 65 or the over 50 population is increasing in size. And these are people that have paid into the system for 30, 40, 50 years. They want their money. I'm one of those. I want my money. The really cool thing on Social Security is I'm going to get a negative return unless I live to be 120. I will have paid in so much more into the system. Realistically, I'll get a negative return no matter how long I live. If I'd have had the money that I paid in Social Security taxes, plus what my employer paid on my behalf in Social Security taxes, I would have roughly $20 million if I'd invested it in just an average stock market mutual fund. The interest on this at 4% would be $800,000 a year. Compare that to the 45, 48, $50,000 a year I'll get in Social Security, whatever it is. That's a big difference. So I'm already getting a negative return. People younger than me will get an even more negative return. Now, as more and more people find this out, find out what they are, getting out of Social Security or not getting out of Social Security, there's going to be more and more resentment about paying taxes into it, especially when those taxes continue to increase. So there's some severe problems ahead. I can't tell you exactly when it'll hit or what the resolution will be, but I can pretty much guarantee there's going to be some severe issues ahead. Also, this past week, you've seen people like Zuckermiller, Bill Gates, Druckenmiller. What did I say? Zuckermiller? No. Who's the guy with Facebook or Meta? Zuck. Whatever. Zuckerberg. All of those have been selling large position. The head of Amazon, I can't think of his name. They've all been selling large positions this past week or two. Druckenmiller is shifting into cash. I shifted into cash this past week. Is that a guarantee that the market is going to flip on us? No, it's not. But what I see is, and what I've described previously, Zuckerberg. Thank you, Brentwood. I just see increasing risk in the market. There's a whole lot of major trends that are not good. Some of them I'm alluded to. The market jumped up high, but on very thin volume, historically very thin volume. That's never a good sign. The spike in inflation, the renewed spike in inflation. We talked about how inflation is cyclical. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. And it takes 5 to 7 years historically to get it under control. The election, the election's going to be tumultuous. There's going to be, huge conflict and anger one side on the other. That's never a good thing. Commercial real estate is a huge problem. Increased interest expense on the national debt is a huge problem, even at current levels. So just getting a little bit more conservative, and I'm in pretty good company. So not offering anybody investment advice, not telling you what to do with your money, just giving you information. Want you to have better information so you can make better decisions. So, I hope that helps. That's kind of a brief review of what's going on. We're going to have more on the market and the current, investing climate Tuesday night. We have Tuesday night Q&A, starts at 7 Eastern. So we'd love to see you then. If you've got some questions or a specific question, specific topic you want me to address, then, email us, moffatonmoney@gmail.com, DM me on Twitter. Also, if you would, don't forget to like and subscribe, share with your friends, family, anybody you can think of. We appreciate your support for the channel. As Ellen said, it is getting a little late. Y'all have been very patient, very kind. We love you guys. Very much appreciate your, support and encouragement of the channel. We really love your participation in terms of questions, comments, even you, Carson. So, thank you. Thank you all. It's been a good night and have really enjoyed seeing you. As Brentwood said, wishing you all a wonderful night and a great Monday, a great week ahead. Our time is up. We thank you for yours. Good night, everyone. Blessings to you.